Three questions, and now a fourth, keep popping into my head. First question is, what if there was no hurry? Second question is, what if I had nothing to prove? Third question is, what if it was God's money, God's house, God's resources? And the new fourth question is, what if this was God's podcast and not mine? I love those questions. I'm going to talk a little bit about those on this episode. Please enjoy.
You know when someone is selling from stage and at the end the audience gets up and rushes to the back of the room to buy? That's a table rush. My name is Misha Z, and the Table Rush Talk Show is all about bringing you the tools, strategies, and tactics that you can use to grow your audience and inspire them to buy.
Okay, the four questions I want to talk about. What if there was no hurry? And the flip side of that is, this is all in God's time. Second question is, what if I had nothing to prove and I was just purely moving from a place of service? Third question is, what if it was God's money, God's house, God's resources, and not mine? And which begs the question, of course, God, how would you have me use your resources, your money, this house? And then the last question, what if it was God's podcast and not mine? What if this was God's podcast? What would you have me do with it? I love those questions, and there's going to be some pauses in here. There's going to be some delays, lots of reflections as I was journaling / inventorying. Anyhow, I would encourage you to think of and reflect on these questions for yourself. And perhaps there's questions like this that are popping into your awareness that it would serve you to reflect on. And I suppose the key thoughts around these are shifting from me problems, my problems, what should I be doing? All this I, me, my, it's just very self-centered. And when I can shift into that service mode, man, oh man, I work so more effectively. I have more confidence, less fear, and just enjoy the moment a lot more. It transmutes that nervous, twitchy, uncomfortable energy to a positive, in the flow feeling sort of energy. When I say transmute, that's kind of like saying changes. So it morphs the energy, it changes the energy. And how powerful is that? And I was having that moment this morning as I was in a bit of upheaval. What should I be doing? What are my next steps? Should I spend this money? What's my podcast supposed to look like? What should I be talking about? What was the other question there? Yeah, what if I had nothing to prove? So, that gets in line with the competitive side of things. Like let's start with question number one. What if there was no hurry? And man, when I feel that I'm behind or need to be doing more or need to be making more money or need to be having more success or needing more, being in a different place than I am currently, usually it's around some fears of financial insecurity. And today I am not financially insecure. I have fears of financial insecurity. Now, some people listening here have legit financial insecurity. Perhaps you're like, if I don't have success now, I'm not paying my bills. And mine is more, if I don't have success now or more success now, maybe I can't pay my bills in 5 years, right? But it's all in God's time. And the illusion that I can change his plan, the universe's plan for me as it's unfolding, I do believe that's an illusion. It's that I can change it, but maybe I can change it, right? These are interesting thoughts. If I'm purely going from a place of, all right, what if there is no hurry? It's all in God's time. How can I be of service? You know, God, what are the next steps you would have me do to be of service? Then maybe it does warp the timeline. But I think what it more of does is it warps the timeline, and that it changes my perception of the moment. How about that? I like that thought. It changes my perception of the moment. One of my coaches, Stephanie, we've been working on, I've spoke to this before, we've been working on looking for proof of success, looking for proof of learning. Who's the guy who talks about that? The gap and the gain. Benjamin Hardy. If you look for the mini wins of the day, of the moment, versus constantly gauging or judging versus the horizon, it can be so much more powerful to look at the micro wins, micro learnings. So this is a good reminder for me. Anyway, next question. What if I had nothing to prove? You know, people that are in my sphere of awareness. I'm in a coaching group, of course, and you know, some of these people are being asked to speak on the big stage, and my competitive side can jump out, and I also feel like sometimes when I'm teaching on my classes in the Influence Army, in this community that I've created and I'm growing with a bunch of heart-centered entrepreneurs, sometimes I feel like, I'm trying to prove something versus, like, prove a point versus, how should I say it? If I'm coming from a place of serving, of being truly of serving versus trying to prove something, it's so much more powerful. And there is value in challenging people's thoughts. I do believe that, and I like to do that. But also there's the idea of like, hey, it's an opportunity for me to learn too. So you do have a good thought, or that is a good headline, or that is a good idea, or that is a good audience. Like, try them. Let's try them. Let's see. Let's learn. And I'll tell you what's very interesting in that regard is, as I'll see somebody's idea for how they want to call out their audience, and I'll think, maybe that isn't good. And then I'm starting to see how, there is an audience there, actually, as I see other people's podcasts, as I see other people's marketing. And I'm definitely starting to see, wait a minute, like, I need to continue to encourage. I need to encourage more, encourage ideas more. Yes, that's a great way to put it. I think that's a great way to put it. So if I'm coming from a place of pure service and encouragement versus trying to be right in my myopic viewpoint, I hope that makes sense. Appreciate everybody listening to this, listening to me talk through this. I hope it's giving you ideas, giving you permission to think about some things, to put your voice out there as well. I'll skip to the last question. What if this was God's podcast and not mine? I was having some insecurity about my podcast as I listen to other people's podcasts, or I see other people's viewerships, or I see other people's, reviews. I can have insecurity about the supposed success of my podcast. And so I can start thinking I need to change it. I need to do things differently. I need to be more structured or do all these things, when it's like, wait, this is God's podcast. What if this was God's podcast and not mine? And God, how would you have me do your podcast? And the answer was, just like you're doing, keep at it. It's going to morph, change, grow as God sees fit. Simple as that. And I love that. And so it's like, all right, it's all good. I'm doing exactly what I need to do, what God needs me to do, wants me to do with the podcast right now. And I think that's a beautiful thought. It freed me up this morning. All of these questions are designed, I see, to break me out of my self-centeredness. What should I be doing? How should I be doing this? What happens when I run out of money, or if I run out of money, or I don't make millions, or whatever? There's all these things, and the podcast, it's such an ego game. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyway, these are great thoughts. What if it was God's money? We'll talk to that. I have been broke in my life. But even though those times of brokenness, it's the reality is I've had resources there's been people that I could go to get support. So I'm lucky in that regard to have a network like that. And I think as well that, the American government seems to have some resources out there as well, at least for a little bit. So to help people. But the reality is, being a white male, middle class, and having that network of family, friends, associates. Like, I've never been broke and then not had access to support. I've been close to that point when I went through the divorce. Oh my God, and my career fell apart. Man, I borrowed money from family. I borrowed as much as they were not going to lend me much more. Let's put it that way. So, and there's been times in my business life over the years where people have extended me credit, and thank goodness I've had financial success from that. What am I trying to say here? Yeah, as I'm building out this community, this membership, bringing on team, my son Cooper is all in, helping me. It can take some money to build a business, and so the quest for profitability, that's the quest I'm on now. I'm like, okay, time for profitability. But there's a lot of investing going on still. And so that the curve or that cross point of revenue and investment. So anyway, I'm looking at investing in more things, and I'm like, God, what is up with this? And it's like, the question is, well, what if this was God's money and not mine? And, again, this trust thing, like, hey, finances, money, the coin, the paper, the credit is going to ebb and flow. Sometimes there'll be a lot, sometimes there'll be less. And the illusion that there's security in big piles is just that. Oh my God, where am I going with this? I don't know. It was like, God, this is all yours. This house is yours. Because I can be like, oh, the house, I need to do this, this, and this. it's like my business, my house, my finances are definitely in a state of change, growth, and how do I want to say it? It's like when you're remodeling a house, there's constantly things that are half done. When you're building a business, and I suppose it always feels like this, but when you're building a business, there's a lot of things that are half done right now. And so that can feel like my house is half done. My business is half done. My finances are half done. But anyway, so just turning that all over to God. Really, that's what this is all about, right? And shifting to, all right, how can I serve my heart-centered entrepreneurs? How can I serve them? God, you've given me these resources, these abilities, this brain. How can I serve? What are my next steps to serve you and these heart-centered entrepreneurs? If this podcast, like, if I can strip away the need for this illusory success metric and just be like, this is your podcast. I'm here to do what you'd have me do with it. And then again, what if I had nothing to prove? If I could strip away that competitive side and just be like, hey, I'm here to serve. And I had a great experience. I was at this meeting last night, actually, and I really focused on the whole meeting of, what if I had nothing to prove at this meeting? Like, where I needed to say something or have a spotlight shown on me. And I really just focused on that. So people who were speaking, I really was trying to pay attention and hear the value that they were adding. Like, what was their message? And it was so powerful for me. It was a great meeting. And ironically, the spotlight came to me a few times. And it was just because I was trying to pay attention and connect and resonate with the main speaker and such. And so he must have felt it, because he kept on calling me out in a good way, asking me questions. It was so ironic. But I'm going to see if I can keep this podcast episode to below 20 minutes. I'll do my best, which means I need to wrap it up. But there you go. There's some questions to ask yourself, and it's serving me very well as I can go to serve my audience, serve my heart-centered entrepreneurs, use the podcast. It's God's podcast, not mine. It's God's money, not mine. God's got me here to serve. There you go. We'll call it good. I hope this sparks some thoughts in you, some meditative moments in you, some freedom. Like, I'm so free as I talk through this and know right now that I am here to serve, and the tasks today that I'm going to do, some of them are uncomfortable. I'm here to serve. And so let's do it. Let's tackle the day. There you go. I'll end there. Love to all.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.